live. And we're live on Facebook, and I'm just going to actually share us into the Revolutionary Woman group. So hang 10 everyone while it comes up on my screen and I share into that group. Share now. Also, I always need to narrate it when I'm doing that. Share to a group. That one. 3 questions left with me, Tara. All right, everyone. Welcome, Tara. I'm Morna Haist, the founder of Revolutionary Woman Global, here with Tara Barnes, the Global Community Assistant for Revolutionary Woman Global, and also the founder of Green Rainbow Collective. And I'm tuning in from the west coast of BC, Canada. Tara, where are you today?
I am tuning in from Athens, Greece.
Woohoo, Athens, Greece. Okay, so let's start right there, Tara. And by the way, everyone, Tara doesn't know the 3 questions I'm about to ask her. In fact, I didn't know the 3 questions that I was about to ask Tara up like 2 minutes ago. I decided on the questions, which is part of our little experiment that we're doing in the Revolutionary Woman Dojo this month, being visible and having our community members be visible. And actually, Tara, just as we're doing this, it made me think this morning that you and I need to do some videos into the Revolutionary Woman Global group and actually tell people who we are. So yeah, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that tomorrow. But in the meantime, Tara Barnes, tell us about the refugee situation in Greece. What's it like? What do you want people who are tuning into this to know about what's happening in Greece and what it's like for refugee populations?
Well, that's
we'll just start
a pretty
there.
Big question to try and answer in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We should do a live on that lasts like an hour or so.
Right. Yeah. Totally. So this is just a taster. We've already, in the first minute decided on 2 more lives we're going to do. So let's do the taster.
Yeah, taster version. Well, really the short version is it's horrible. The situation for the refugees generally in Europe, but especially here in Greece. Oh my God, yeah, where do you even begin?
Well, let's begin with, I know there are many refugees in Greece. Why do refugees end up in Greece? Why has Greece become kind of a central hub for so many refugees?
Because it's kind of their pathway. Most of them pass through on the way to Germany. One of the most common routes is people come through Turkey, and then from Turkey, Greece is the next country that they pass on their way to the rest of Europe. The majority of refugees have absolutely no intention of staying here in Greece.
Okay.
But they get stuck here for one reason or another. Admittedly, there are plenty of people who have moved on to other countries and then they come back because compared to some of the Northern European cultures, the Greek culture is just so like, Greece is kind of halfway between East and West. It's not really European, but it's not really Eastern.
Right.
So it tends to be a culture that is a bit easier for the refugees generally to handle. I think for most sane people, but anyways.
Well, just following on, this is still the same question, everyone.
Yes.
Really, I mean, where maybe this is another really difficult question to ask, and I acknowledge the difficulty of these questions. Because the question I was about to ask is, where are most of the refugees coming from? Or where are refugees coming from that are entering into Greece?
From so many places and countries, so many different places. Some of the ones that just come off the top of my head, Afghanistan, Syria, Iran, a lot of Kurdish, particularly from Turkey, from Cameroon and other places in Africa, Congo. Yeah, from Yemen, from Palestine,
Wow.
from the list goes on and on.
And what happens when a refugee reaches Greece? By the way, Tara's not an expert in, how refugees come in and out of Greece. However, yeah, I'm really curious. Well, yeah, you are. I'm curious.
I'm probably more expert than anyone who's not a refugee.
Yeah, exactly. How, where do they end up? What's it like for refugees in Greece?
There are about as many different stories as there are refugees. Some people go, they cross on the boats and then they go directly into camps on the islands. Some people cross the land borders. It depends if they get caught during the crossing or not. Sometimes there's police involvement, sometimes there isn't. If there is, it's usually extremely traumatic, of course. And some people are just like living like ghosts with no identity, like the government doesn't know they've come in and they're trying to apply for asylum, but they can't. I know people who have been trying for years and years. You know, they came in undetected and now they've been here for years. I have one friend, some people maybe 10 years, they've been here and trying and trying. And they just can't get legal here. So some of them can't even get an appointment, you know, to have an interview for their asylum or start the process.
Right. So I imagine,
there's lots of different ways that it happens.
And I imagine all of the systems around moving people through whatever pathway there is to either seeking asylum or becoming a legal citizen. I imagine these systems are at breaking point, dysfunctional, non-existent. What's the story there, or your opinion on the systems that surround this?
Yeah, completely broken. And even when something that like should be easy, it's not, and they intentionally make it difficult. My sister, she was waiting for almost 2 years just to take her ID card. You know, and that was with everything, already had her positive answer, her asylum, everything was proper. She should have, if it had been another country in Europe, she probably would have had it in less than a month, maybe even less than a week. But here it can take years.
Wow. And so what happens to people in the meantime, and whatever situations they're in? And again, I know there are a million different situations, but maybe this is a great segue into telling us why you started Green Rainbow Collective, you know, the work that you're doing in refugee populations. Tell us about, again, I just feel like every single question I'm asking here is like, tell us about why you started Green Rainbow Collective, what it is, and the change that you hope to make through it. By the way, this has turned into 20. This has turned into 20 questions live with Tara. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, most refugees, they're just like, they end up here and they have nothing. They have no support from the state. They have nowhere to live. I mean, maybe they're in a camp and they have some access to some level of food and shelter. But yeah, a lot of people are just left here with absolutely nothing, no support, no financial support, no housing support, no language support, or like just nothing, except for the organizations. Which, yeah, brings me to Green Rainbow. So basically, Green Rainbow Collective is a bunch of different projects. And some pieces are aimed at providing more like job training, job opportunities, exposure to artists, helping artists sell, you know, the things that they create, or just continue their art. For example, one of our team members is an internationally awarded filmmaker. He has gotten awards on 5 continents, more than 30 different awards at film festivals on 5 continents.
Wow.
And he basically has no access to work. And that's just ridiculous that someone that talented.
Let's pause. Well, let's pause on this point, because I really want to bust whatever, for folks watching or folks watching the replay, I don't know what you do or don't know about refugees, or what your idea is around who these folks are. They're people who had careers, who had lives, who had jobs, who had stuff going on in their lives, who have won international awards like Tara was just talking about, who end up in these situations with no access to make a living for themselves, to participate in economies, and then stuck in nightmare of a limbo land in between, how can you have any kind of dignified existence in these systems? It's nearly impossible. Okay, back to you, Tara. But I wanted to make that point.
And it gets even worse. It gets even worse because especially as a refugee, you can't get a bank account unless you have a job, which means that even if you want to try and start up your own work, your own business, to charge for services, to sell your art, it's not possible because you don't have the right to have a bank account. So even people who want to start up things independently, that are really talented and have services or products that they want to sell and share, they don't have the ability to do so because they don't have a bank account. So yeah, that's definitely one of the big pieces of the Green Rainbow Collective. And then the other side is the eco village. So we are trying to raise funds to purchase land to build an eco village, where our team members will live. We will have people who are studying, like some interns coming to live with us and other volunteers. And we will be doing cultural and environmental education, job training, and growing lots and lots of food to share freely with our communities, as well as recycling plastic and using the profits from the things we sell to purchase more plastic recycling machines so that refugees on the islands can start to produce their own housing, because many of the refugees are living in tents. Almost all of them in the camps are in tents, and in the winters they flood, and it's just a nightmare. And they're also surrounded in mountains of plastic. So to turn those mountains of plastic into dignified housing is one of the goals.
Wow. Yeah, and everyone's going to hear more and more over the coming months about how you can support the work that Tara and her team are doing in Greece. That's for sure, because it's, I think, a model of how we can start to move forward. Because I don't know what also the mythology around this is, that somehow these folks are going to be able to go back to where they came from, or that that there's some life waiting for people somewhere else. I mean, people must end up in these camps stuck, and they're on islands for a reason too, right? To keep people trapped there.
Yeah, exactly. They're put on the islands to keep isolated, contained, away from integrating. And yeah, I mean, some of them, in some countries, the situation, it's very political. For example, my documentary, Masoud, our filmmaker on our team, him and his partner left Iran because they had made a documentary about one artist, and that artist had gotten arrested and tortured, and they were worried that they were going to be next. And so, it's political. They have family, they have physical houses to go back to, but it's terrifying. And then there's other people who their houses are literally rubble. They've been bombed to bits, and there's nothing for them to go back to. So either situation, there's no going back. And so providing, like, integrating and building bridges is another one of the key. With all of the pieces that Green Rainbow Collective is doing, the overarching goal is building these bridges between diverse communities, and kind of showing the Western communities that refugees, like, they're people too. They're here with talent and skill, and they want to come and make the new communities that they're in better, more beautiful places, and use their skills. They're not here to be a drain on society. They're here to be part of it.
Well, and I think this is the thing, especially this idea about people being a drain on society. I think some of it happens because people get stuck in this place of limbo where they can't contribute in the economy that they're in. Like, they have no means of production themselves. And it's so devastating on every single level. So the last question I want to ask you, and again, folks, you are going to get way more opportunities to hear much more of the story here and the work that Tara and her team are doing, and the resources and the support they need, because you're doing this in the middle of it. Like, you're in it. You're living in and amongst folks. You yourself, having yeah, exactly. You are one of these folks. Just so that people realize. What are the number one, number two, number three things that we could do, or anyone who's watching this can do right now, to lend a hand to start supporting you and helping the work that you're doing?
Well, we are still kind of in the we're in the startup stages of getting everything sorted out. So one of the easiest things that people can do, I hate to say this because it's only September, but holidays are around the corner. We have a shop, and when you purchase from our shop, all of the funds go directly to the artist who created that. So definitely not going to me or anyone personally, but these artists are part of our team, and many of them are unemployed, or if they are employed, they're waiting for sometimes months to get their paychecks. So purchasing things from these artists is a great way to help us, and you get nice, cool stuff with beautiful art on it. And then we are obviously, we need money. We need to buy this land. So financial contributions are always helpful. We're also paying the rent. Some of you may know I'm paying our office rent out of my pocket every month. So yeah, there's expenses just for starting up, as well as for saving up to purchase the land, which is going to be just super important in obviously everything that we're doing. So, and number 3 is talk to a refugee.
Talk to a refugee.
Because yeah, it's kind of this big scary word, and in the West we have this just like, oh yeah, they're just a drain, or they're even worse, they're like they're a terrorist or something, or just this idea that they just get everything handed to them. I can't tell you how many times I've heard like, oh, they have everything, they have house, they have money every month, they don't do anything, and their life is so easy. Like, oh my God, that could not be further from the truth for probably 90%. Yeah.
Not true, not true, not true. And
yeah, I guess that was basically it.
Yeah, not true. Let's finish off on 2 things. One is we will be doing formal fundraising for Tara's organization and work between now and the end of the year. I don't know what that looks like. We don't know what that looks like yet, because I'm just saying that out loud here. And you don't have to wait for any of that. Tara, I want to invite you to put your links underneath this for folks to, again, one of the easiest ways is to buy a gift. If you can contribute also your time and connections into this project, don't hesitate to reach out to me or Tara. Yeah, and Tara, I want to finish off by saying thank you. Thank you for showing up to the work you're doing, for being the human being that you are. And we're blessed and grateful to have you as a member of our community as well. Man, I wish that had been 20 questions with Tara. And yeah, next time it will be 20 questions. If you've tuned in live and you've been here, let us know that you are here. Again, we'll pop the links to Tara's work and organization after this. Tara, is there anything that you want to say in closing to anyone who might be watching this?
Oh, closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts.
Open your mind, open your heart. We're not that scary, I promise.
Oh, thank you, my love. Okay, I'm going to stop being live now. That was 3 questions live with Tara Barnes.